Here it is. It's the Surfliner, or is it the Sprinter? It's the Sprinter. Taking people somewhere. I don't even know what direction that is. That's south, right? Yeah, that's the 15, that's south. It's Wednesday in paradise, and just after 9:15, wrapping up today. 2001 or 2, I think it's an 01 Le Mans Blue, former Cars and Bids cars back. We did an MPI on this several months ago. Uncovered a bunch of work, and as you can see, we've started a bunch of work. Drive shaft and exhaust came out this morning, followed by heat shields, lowered the rear subframe, took out the differential, replaced the differential bushings, factory bushings in the rear. Unicorn egg up front fit very well. Transmission's out, flywheel and clutch kits are off, revealing a leaking rear main seal. Part comes in tomorrow, customer approved. So tomorrow the rear main will go in, the flywheel will go on, the clutch will go on. We've prepared the transmission mostly for installation, which is over here. It's got a new flex disc on the back, new transmission bushings, new nuts top and bottom. Took out the pivot fork, whatever we call this piece, replaced the little nipple behind there. A little bit of lubricant, new throwout bearings in, a little bit of lubricant. We'll clean up the bell housing a touch before it goes back in. One of the bolts had been damaged during a prior removal, so we'll be replacing that. Usual stuff with the shifter, new carrier bushings, new rod joint, new dowel pin, kind of the usual suspects. Here's our shifter carrier with fresh bushings all ready to go in, 545 short shifter. Here's the differential out of that car. I don't know if he goes off-roading or what, but it is pretty much caked in dried mud. We already cleaned this up here with a wire wheel on a drill, but extremely light pressure as not to damage the paint, but just remove some of the dirt. We're definitely going to have to clean this up before we open it. We don't want that getting inside. Differential fluid was absolutely black and totally reeks, way worse than any other fluid we had ever removed. So it's probably original and maybe has seen a lot of high heat cycles. Here's the flywheel, potentially original. I don't think these are date stamped, at least in a way I know how to identify. Certainly seen some heat. Clutch disc was quite close to the rivets, and the other side, the back of the pressure plate, looked about just as bad as this flywheel. So I would be surprised if they're original at 187,000 miles, though it's possible if it was a highway car. Here's the drive shaft. This drive shaft will not be going back in, as this U-joint is totally cooked. I don't know that I'm going to be able to get enough force on it to get it to play, but Mike sent me a video earlier today. I'll put that in instead. Yep, so I checked with my suppliers. No one really has a good used one, so we're going with the same company that we have make them for the manual E60s. They're going to build us one, new custom shaft with a serviceable U-joint for the E39. Center support bearing is completely detached and destroyed, and that's what we noted during the MPI several months ago, and kind of advised him not to drive the car very much until that's replaced. But the advice wasn't taken, and I think that may have cost him the U-joint. We've already completed fluids and filters in this car, obviously minus the diff fluid, which will be done after it's reinstalled, and I think the transmission fluid's going to be done when it's reinstalled too. So power steering and engine oil are done. Engine oil filter, cabin filters, engine filters, normal stuff going on there. Coolant, I don't think we're diving into. He declined the power steering lines, and they are leaking, so we've got a little tourniquet on it there so it doesn't drip down below. Someone did the motor mounts recently. Oil pan itself is kind of dry, but really this is the driveline service portion of what he's going to have us do, I think. The 530i, the base car, we got the second set of seat trims today, so those will be going in tomorrow. Door panel is still off, awaiting arrival of a new window regulator. Front right fog light was intermittent. If you whack it, it would flash and flicker, so ended up taking the wiring, or taking the bulb out, looking at the wiring. Somebody had, it's got an MTech bumper on it. I'm sure an eBay fake one, it doesn't fit very well there, but someone crimped M5 style fog light connectors on, because annoyingly they are different than the standard 5 series, and the crimp had failed, and it was an aftermarket plug, and it just disintegrated. So we bought a new factory one, new wire leads, heat shrunk them on there, wrapped everything in Terra tape, and zip tied the wire up there to the SAP so it doesn't hang down or anything. So that's a job well done. Fixed fog light. This is an ultra low mileage 34,000 mile 2008 M5 SMG. Is it full leather? It is. It's a very nice car. Here for very persistent ABS issues. Believe it was the E60's equivalent of the trifecta. we can't get the codes to return. I've driven the car a couple of times. I couldn't get it to go away before. Now I can't get it to come back so we can properly diagnose it, which is super annoying. We have an EDC issue as well. Wake up line terminal and supply voltage. Checked all the fuses, checked voltage at the EDC module, which is down there in the passenger footwell, kind of where the E39 LCM is, actually exactly where the E39 light module is, and everything seems fine. So I don't understand what the hell's going on with the EDC. We'll be digging into that more tomorrow. In episode 46 of How Ryan Gets Screwed, I've got the 540 up here, hoping to remove the exhaust drive shaft transmission or get that transmission replaced and the drive shaft and shifter rebuilt. I received the new transmission, new used transmission. I don't even remember if I've talked about this, so please forgive me. This is a used transmission from a 2001 540i 6-speed with 64,000 miles on it, ultra low mileage unit. I did pay a fair bit for it. The idea was I'd get this transmission ready to be installed. All I'm going to do is replace the rod joint and the selector shaft seal, change the fluid, and basic maintenance on it, and pop it in one day and then drive it home that night. And that's not going to be the case. It's going to have to go up to my sublet in South LA or North Orange County and get some work done because annoyingly it was damaged in shipping. And this absolutely sucks, and it's UPS. It was put in this large plastic crate and well protected by a ton of thick cardboard on the bottom, on the top, all four sides, kind of a nice soft cushy place for a transmission to hang out. They were not kind to this package. It's cracked down there in the bottom. It's cracked over here on the side. It's cracked in that corner. I don't think it was poorly packaged. I think it was very poorly handled and aggressively handled, and unfortunately it has cost us a rear cover. So this is kind of the oil pan and oil sump rear cover on the transmission, held on with a bunch of 13 millimeter bolts. Obviously the output flange is going to have to come off. The thought is I'm going to take that one out that's in the car and then take this one and rent a car and take them up to LA, drop them off, have them swap the rear covers. At that point, we'll also replace the output flange seal, probably do the arrestor balls, since those are going to be 120Ks and these are going to be 60, so I'll just put new arrestor balls in there. Obviously the rod joint will be done, and then that'll be sealed up here. It's kind of a gasket maker type thing, and looks like it's got a dowel in there. But I noticed, because when I took it out of the box, all the cardboard on the bottom was wet, and I'm thinking, that's not good. Well, maybe they flipped it over during installation and it just leaked out the vent hole. So I cleaned it up, put it on a dry spot on the floor, came back half hour later, and it was all wet underneath it. So I cleaned up this part of the transmission, found this crack. Obviously, it would have been an impact from here, or, I mean, it'd be hard to hit it like that, so it had to be like this, and put some nice cracks in there. Could it be welded? Yeah, probably, but it is on the bottom. And you're going to have hot fluid doing a lot of thermal cycles right on top of it. And I certainly want to get it opened up to make sure there's no internal damage before I go through all the labor of installing it in the car. So now we will have to deal with a week's downtime, 2 car rentals, 2 trips to and from Los Angeles. But we'll get it done. It'll be a good transmission once it's in there. And then, pending the front bumper, which is here and just awaiting paint, and we're not really awaiting paint, we're awaiting the other one of these trims with PDC. I think I got the right side and I need the left side, or vice versa. I have the plate delete panel, that's gonna go in. I have new fog lights I dropped off today at Elite Finish. He's gonna rewrap those, or wrap them in clear film. And this bumper's just cooked. I mean, down here, look at the piece of angled aluminum somebody tried to put in there and keep it together. The belly pan itself is okay. It's dirty, but it's not cracked. All the hardware's there. We have a nice new oil pan access door. So a new bumper is going to go a long way in refreshing this car. And I did end up buying this trim, the center trim and the right trim. And then today, of course, the work scope has increased a bit more. So of course I have to replace these impact strips on the back for the versions with PDC holes. And I'm thinking the bumper's going to come off for that. You know where this is going. The bumper's going to come off for that. This one's original. I don't think it has any washed out holes, really, because they're just holes where these 185 clips go. But the damage in this thing, which wasn't here when it was sold 2 years ago, so thank Jesse Pinkman, the previous owner, is all right here, and it's in a body line. This corner's been retouched before. There's a bit of a gouge and a crack right here. There's only 3 of these left. Call it 2 now. Another gouge over here. So we'll have fresh bumpers to go along with the PDC project. And really all I'm waiting on is the 8 sensors from German eBay, those 2 trims. Once all that comes in, it'll all go and get painted. It'll be back in a few days, and then we'll get up here and get the retrofit going. In preparation for the retrofit, I have printed out the official BMW documentation for park distance control, front and rear on the E39 5 Series. That looks like a facelift car, so that should help us out here. It's not the wordiest thing. It's mostly pictures once we get through contents and preparations. They go through each harness, the front sensor harness, rear sensor harness, and iBus power harness, and kind of talk about what all the connectors are, what they do, cable colors. They label everything A through Z. And then you just follow the steps and go through all this. This document's available at e39source.com/downloads if anybody's interested. They talk about coding. I don't believe there's going to be any coding here. It wants you to use DIS, which hasn't existed in years, and go into retrofit PDC. So hopefully I'll be able to figure that out in NCS, which that car doesn't work with NCS because somebody replaced the EWS, and the checksum digit at the end of the VIN is incorrect. So I have to take the EWS and the DME and the key to the local coding and sublet that so they can reprogram the EWS with the right VIN and checksum, which they will not do in the car, annoyingly. So I'll have to remove the lower dash to pull the EWS out, but it'll get done. The things we go through for these cars. Wiring diagrams, pictures of the PDC module, where it goes, the bracket, the gong speaker, SCM wiring. I opened that up the other day. I think I already talked about all this, so I'm sorry for being redundant, but I opened that up the other day and confirmed that it is indeed pinned. Where are we now? So this is the parking control unit. So that's the PDC module in the trunk, full pinouts, an explanation of each pin, where they go, what they do. This is the button, or the button panel inside that has DSC and heated seats. So I already have a voltage supply for terminal 15 and terminal 30, which is great. Obviously I have the sun blind wires, and that's why the voltage supply is already wired. So I will only have to add 2 pins, 8 and 9, for indicator lamp PDC and PDC signal on off into that switch. So that'll save some time just because I won't have to do a bunch of fusing. Then the gong speakers, known as the H10. This is the front gong. We only have to add 1 signal wire there to activate the T4 front PDC notification beeper. It's gonna be fun. I don't know if I'm gonna do a video on that. I probably should, but it's gonna be really long.